Welcome to www.happynumbers.org. Today's lesson is going to be solving algebraic equations, and we're going to be solving simple equations to start out with. But I want you to take a look at this. This is supposed to be like a seesaw that you see in the playground. And the seesaw is balanced. Everything on this side is the same as everything is on this side. And so it's balanced. And that's what an equation is. An equation needs to be in balance. So this side I have a weight, which I'm representing by x, an unknown. We don't know what it is. And then I have 3. Let's say 3 pounds. So this is x pounds, and then I have 3 pounds here. And on this side, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pounds. So this is the equation, the simple equation that would represent this seesaw. X plus 3 pounds, we're calling these pounds, equals 5 pounds. Because the equation is in balance, so it's equal. Well, if I took the 3 pounds off of this side, well, the seesaw would go like this. It wouldn't be equal anymore. But if I took 3 pounds off of this side and the seesaw became equal, well, then I would know that x must be 2 pounds because it's equal. So x must be 2 pounds. And this is how we solve algebraic equations. And there are a couple of rules I want to put up here for you. And I would write these in your notebook. Rule number 1. Whatever you do to one side of an equation, you must do to the other side. Put your video on pause and write that in your notebook, because this is a very, very important concept. Let me clear up this other. Whatever you do to one side of an equation, you must do to the other side. And you can do anything you want to one side, but then you must do exactly the same thing to the other side. All right, put your DVD on pause or video on pause and copy that down, please. Good. Okay. It's very important. Whatever we do to one side of the seesaw, if we do it to the other side, that's fine. Let me give you an example. If we had, let's make believe we had the seesaw again and it's in balance, and we have 6 over here, and we have 6 over here. Well, if I multiply 6 times 7, that's great. I can do that as long as I do the same thing to this side of the equation to keep it in balance. If I divide 6 times 7 by an unknown w, that's fine as long as I do exactly the same thing to the other side of the equation. So I can do anything I want to one side of an equation as long as I do exactly the same thing to the other side. Okay, second rule. We want to get the unknown on one side and all numbers on the other side. When I say the other side, on one side, I mean one side of the equal sign. So we want to get the unknown, or the letter, whether it's x or y or z or whatever letter, on one side of the equal sign, and then all the numbers on the other side. That's the second rule we want to work with. Put the video on pause and write this in your notebook also, because this is important to keep in mind. And the third thing that we want to keep in mind is what we call inverse or opposite relations. Mathematical relations. Inverse or opposite. You might remember inverse from fractions when we had 1/4. The inverse of 1/4 is 4/1. So it's the opposite, turning it upside down. Now, what we need to realize is that this is addition. The inverse of addition. The opposite mathematical operation is subtraction. If we have subtraction, the opposite mathematical or inverse operation is addition. So, subtraction is the opposite of addition. Addition is the opposite of subtraction. Multiplication is the opposite of division, and division is the inverse or opposite of multiplication. And you'll see how this plays out in a minute. But put your video on pause and write this down in your notebook also. Inverse or opposite relations, mathematical relations. Addition is the inverse of subtraction. I'm sorry, subtraction is the inverse of addition. Addition, inverse of subtraction. Multiplication and division, division and multiplication. All right, put it on pause, copy that down, and then turn it back on again. Good. Now, let's see how all of this fits together. Let's take a very simple equation. Let's take x plus 4 is equal to 11, and we want to solve for x. We want to find out what x is. Now, I know just by looking at this, you can figure out what x is in your head, but we need to learn the process, because when we get to complicated equations, we have to go through the process. So let's start out just by learning this process. Well, I have a couple of rules. I want to get the unknown on one side of the equal sign and all the numbers on the other side. Well, to do that, I have to get rid of this 4 somehow. So I can use the inverse. This is a plus sign. This is positive, plus. So the opposite of positive is negative or minus. So if I subtract 4 from here, I'll get x, and positive 4 and negative 4 give me 0, equals, but the second rule that I have to work is I can do anything I want to one side of an equation, but I have to do the same thing to the other side. So I have to subtract 4 from this side. So when I subtract 4 from 11, I get 7. So my answer is x equals 7. And in working with equations, you can always go back and check your answer. What we started out with was x plus 4 equals 7. I'm sorry, 11. And we solved and we said x equals 7. So we just have to substitute 7 for x. 7 plus 4 is 11. 11 equals 11, so our answer is correct. All right, let's go back over this. Let's use another problem. Let's take a problem like this. Y plus 3 is equal to 7. And we want to solve for y. Now again, I know you can figure this out in your head, but you need to be able to learn to go through the process. So, I have to get all the unknowns. I have to get the unknown on one side of the equal sign and all the numbers on the other side, which means that I need to get rid of this. Now, this is a positive 3, and I know the inverse or opposite is a negative 3. So I can put a negative 3 here, but I know I can do anything I want to one side, but I have to do the same to the other side. So I have to put a negative 3 here. So now I get y, and these cancel out, positive 3 and whoops, there's my 10 minutes. So I know these cancel out, positive 3 and negative 3. So I have y equals 7 take away 3 is 4. Y equals 7 take away 3 is 4. And if that is so, I can go back to the initial equation, y plus 3 equals 7, and I can substitute my answer. 4 plus 3 equals 7, and 4 plus 3 does equal 7. So our solution is correct. Well, good. In the next video, I'll put up a bunch of equations for you to solve, and we'll let you solve them. Now keep in mind, what we want to do, we want to get all the unknowns on one side and all of the numbers on the other side. And to do that, we can use the inverse relationship, or the opposite mathematical relationship. Remember, the opposite of addition is subtraction. The opposite of subtraction is addition. The opposite of multiplication is division. And the opposite of division is multiplication. Excellent. Well, we'll see you next time for part 2 of solving algebraic equations, where you'll be working on some problems. Thank you.